Hi, in this video we are going to go over formulas for our word problems. Now, we do have compound interest, and then we have compounded continuously. Those are two different formulas. Anytime you see the phrase continuously, you are going to use PERT on the right. But if you see compounded and not the word continuously, then you're going to use the phrase on your left. So, for example, you might say see compounded monthly or compounded weekly. That's the left formula. But if it says compounded continuously, that would be the right formula. Now, in both formulas, A is your future amount. So if you want to eventually have $10,000, that would be A. P is called your principal amount. It is also your initial. Let's say you started by investing $1,000. R is a rate, specifically as a decimal. So if you had 3%, that means in your equation you would do 0.03. If you had 0.5%, you always move the decimal over 2 spots, or really divide by 100, whatever floats your boat. N stands for the number of compounds per year. We'll talk about that more in a bit. T represents time, and for the formula on the left, time is always in years. For the formula on the right, it is pretty typical that time is in years, but if the problem specifies another time frame, like if you're talking about days or hours, then time could be whatever the problem specifies on the right. E is a button in, well, E is a number, which is also a button in your calculator. It is the number 2.718. In order to get to it, you're going to hit second, ln, and ln is next to the number 4. So second, ln will get you e with an exponent. Second, divide will also get you e, but there will be no exponent. And you can see it's 2.718, and it goes on forever. So for what n is, that is the type of compounding. So if you're reinvesting your money, that's what it means to compound. You take your interest and you reinvest it. Annually is once per year. These are all values of n. Semi-annually is twice, quarterly is 4, monthly is 12, weekly is 52, daily is 365. I don't know why I was blanking out on that. And continuous would then be the E formula. But really, continuously is infinitely. You are constantly compounding as much as you possibly can. So for the test memory quiz tomorrow, you do have to remember these two formulas. The next two formulas we have are half-life and double time. So if you see the half-life formula, we have A is your final amount or your future amount. A sub 0 is your initial amount. Now, I know a lot of people don't like A sub 0. If you would prefer to write A equals P times 1/2 T over H, you can. It doesn't really make a difference. It's just that they've used the notation A sub 0 on your regions. Really important is that it's 1/2 because half-life. This is an exponent, so be really careful. This is not times T over H. This is to the power of T over H. T represents time, H is specifically the half-life. So if you decay by half every 30 years, H would be 30. On the right-hand side, you have the double time formula. If you double every 20 years, D, your double time, would be 20. And notice that the difference is that for half-life, it's 0.5. For double time, it's 0.2. You do have to remember these formulas for your quiz tomorrow. Going on to relationships between logs and exponents, you have to remember, this is very important, this phrase, keep the base and switch if you want to go in between logs and exponential functions. So if you're starting with 2 to the x equals, I don't know, 8. Well, then you're going to write your equal sign, and the base is 2. So you're going to write log base 2. And I wrote it on the left because the 2 was on the left initially. So we kept the base, and now you switch the other two values. So the 8 is going to go to the left, the x is going to come to the right. For the next one, we have, let's say we wanted to do log base 4 of x equals, I don't know, let's go with 16. You're going to write your equal sign, keep the base is on the bottom of the log, and you're going to switch the other two values. So the 16 is going to come to the right, the x is going to come to the left. And you would use your calculator and do x to whatever you would use your calculator and do 4 to the 16th, and that would be the value of x. If you see log of x and there is no base missing, that's because it actually has a base of 10. That is important for tomorrow. If you see ln represents log base e of x. So if you go to your calculator, you do have to remember both of these, but really it's not even remembering at all, because if you look at the log button to the left of the number 7 in the calculator, 10 to the x is right above it. So log, when you don't have a base, is base 10. If you go to the ln button next to the number 4, right above it is e in your calculator, because ln is log base e. So we shouldn't have to remember it. If you ever need to find the log button in your calculator, and I'm not talking about log base 10, I'm talking about any base. It's alpha, window, choice 5. Now, if you have another way to find it, that's great, but I prefer alpha, window, choice 5, because you have absolute value, summation, log base, and then the any root button there. So it's really helpful. So if you want to solve an exponential equation, let's say we have 100 equals 20 times, I don't know, 2 to the x plus 2. Nah, we'll get rid of that. We'll just do this. 100 equals 20 times 2 to the x, and you want to figure out what x is. The first thing you want to do is isolate the exponential expression. Basically, you want to isolate your base. So your base is 20. No, I meant 2. I was underlining 2. Your base is 2. You want to isolate the 2 by getting rid of the 20. You always want to get rid of the coefficient. So I'm going to divide by 20 on both sides. And that's going to give me 5 on the left and 2 to the x on the right. You don't have to write any more parentheses because there's nothing else there. The parentheses show that it is separate in the first line because the 20 was there. Now what you can do is keep the base and switch. You're going to solve your exponential equation by turning it into a log equation. So the 2 is on the right, so you're going to write log base 2 on the right because that was the base. You're going to switch the other two values. 5 goes to the right, x goes to the left. In your calculator, you would do alpha, window, choice 5, log base 2 of 5, and you would hit enter, and you would see that it's about 2.32 whatever. Ah. Right? Yeah. Okay. The last thing we have to cover is down payment questions. So do you remember those really weird mortgage problems that we got, and they had insane formulas that you didn't have to remember? You do need to remember the vocabulary of it. So please be careful when reading the question thoroughly and identify what each variable is. If you write everything down on the side, you do have to know that a down payment is the amount of money you put down out of pocket on a house. So, for example, if a house was $500,000, not everyone has $500,000 in cash. They need to get a loan, but the bank isn't going to pay for all of it. So maybe they'll put $50,000 in cash and the bank supplies the other $450,000. The $50,000 is called a down payment. So the amount borrowed from the bank is the cost of home or cost of the home. I'm going to go with total cost. Minus your down payment. So for example, if your total cost of the home was $500,000 and you're putting a down payment of $50,000, then the amount borrowed from the bank is $450,000 for your loan. So you do need to know how to get that. Also, you make monthly payments. So you have 12 payments a year. In other words, if you have 6 years times 12 payments a year, that means that your total amount would be 6 times 12. Ooh, there we go. You have a total of 72 payments to make. Because sometimes the questions do ask that as well. But what you have to remember here is the formula to how to find your amount borrowed. So we have the amount borrowed formula. We have the phrase, keep the base and switch. What log x means, what ln of x means, your half-life formula, your double time formula, and the compound and continuous interest formula. I know that's a lot of formulas to remember, but you gotta remember them for the regions. None of them are on your reference sheet. Bye.